Sometimes people come late. So those of you that are on time, thank you very much. And can you move forward to allow space for those that might kind of dribble in a little bit later. The coveted seats in the back, you're fine. Unless some elderly person comes along and you have to do anything. Welcome to the first day of summer. The longest day of the year. Longest day of light. All days are 24. And we're missing our usual cast of redundant players because they're having their own activities. Have you parents heard some report from the youth that are involved in this youth gathering? They like it. This has been Education Week. Sri Radhika was doing one for the little ones, and then for the youth ones, and then for the oldsters. It's Education Week in Naperville and Chicago. And some of you are kindly gracing us with your presence, although you haven't been able to be with us in the earlier sessions. And this is our last session. So I'm going to have to do a little review for those of you that haven't been so fortunate to be with us. These are yours. The topic, Madhurya Kadambini, meaning Cloud Bank of Nectar. This is a book written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and I've been pretty much saying the same thing each class because there's always a new group of people. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is a very important member of our disciplic succession. And one of the ways to express that is, if you look at the disciplic succession that is provided to us by Srila Prabhupada, but was provided to Prabhupada by Bhaktisiddhanta, if you look really carefully, you'll see that prior to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there's a big gap of time between him and the previous one that's listed. You may not see that in the chronology, but that's because prior to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there were Diksha gurus in the line of succession, but they weren't so prominent that they make their way into that list of disciplic succession. Several generations. And several generations is a lot of time for anything to kind of fizzle or lose its efficacy. So that's what happened. At the time that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur became a member of this disciplic succession and a super prominent member of disciplic succession, particularly in Vrindavan, which previously had been like the epicenter for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It was still there, but not so prominent. And it was elsewhere, but not so prominent. And he restored its prominence because of his great quality of spiritual. Just visiting or joining?
We came to drop kids off because their parents are here.
Parents are here, so some of your children are going to be dropped on you. Oh, excuse me. They'll be with you for some this evening. Okay. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he moved to Vrindavan. We settled in Vrindavan. He lived a very long life. He was very elderly before he left this world. And he restored prominence to the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and specifically his immense fidelity to Rupa Goswami, and therefore amongst the books that he wrote, there were detailed commentaries on and further explanations of what Rupa Goswami wrote, following his Rupanuga, an exalted Rupanuga. So one of the outstanding contributions made by him was he then in turn trained the next Acharya, who was Baladev Vijayabhusan, and was skipping many details of the glories of Baladev. Baladev did something very unique for our disciplic succession, that is, Baladev wrote the commentary for the Gaudiya line on Vedanta Sutra, because historically, to establish authenticity of a disciplic line, there must be, and the other disciplic succession acharyas did so, they established very comprehensive commentary of Vedanta Sutra. Why is that important? Because Vedanta Sutra is a summarization of all the Vedas. in little codes. And so what does your line of disciplic session say about the summary essence messages of Vedanta Sutra? It's an exposition on your line's views on Vedanta Sutra. So the Gaudiya line didn't have one because Lord Chaitanya said it's already there. Srimad Bhagavatam, natural commentary. And there were some other persons, you could use some adjectives, but there were some other persons that wasn't satisfactory for them. And there was an issue of conflict, believe it or not, there was a conflict. And the conflict was resolved by Baladev writing commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And he did so under the direct guidance, training, and instruction of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who stayed in Vrindavan. Baladev went to Jaipur, sat at the feet of Govindaji, prostrated himself at the feet of Govindaji for several days non-stop, praying to him, and then Govindaji dictated, and Baladev wrote down Govindavasya. Vishwanath, compliments of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who trained him in A to Z. Of course, there was other qualifications that Baladev also had, but preeminent was Vishwanath. So it's a very important part in our Gaudiya line event, happening. We spoke a little bit about his deity, Gokulananda, who, wonderful story. He wanted to be worshipped by Vishwanath. And he arranged for his worship by Vishwanath. And it wasn't easy, because Vishwanath was not qualified, etc. So we heard that description. So then we began hearing the first 4 chapters of Madhurya Kadambini, which summarized go like this. How does bhakti begin? And in short, bhakti arises from bhakti. From, more specifically, a madhyama bhakta who's carrying bhakti awakens bhakti by spilling a little bhakti on somebody and saying, oh, excuse me. Thank you very much. And bhakti awakens bhakti. And bhakti is independent. It's a very big, rigorous, short, but rigorous philosophical. Some people say other things, and the other things are not acceptable because. Bhakti awakens bhakti. And this Madhyama Bhakti, Madhyama Bhakta. I've been emphasizing this again because that's our position. We're Madhyama, intermediate stage, or trying to be. And good. So, all of you, have power of attorney from Krishna. You know what power of attorney is, a legal term. Krishna has given his power of attorney to you, saying, you can give me to whoever you like. Now, there's meters that Madhyamas are enjoined who to give Krishna to. We don't give Krishna to Hiranyakashipus and tiny Hiranyakashipus. Prahlad can do that. But we can't do that. Because those people will be offenders. So we don't give Krishna to those people. But to the innocent, we are enjoined. And if we don't give to the innocent, they're going to continue on in an unfortunate condition. Because we were, we weren't exercising our power of attorney. We weren't just giving Krishna to them. So this, like the monthly Sankirtan festival. That's in a really nice way. Everyone can go exercise your Madhyama Bhakta muscle, little bhakti therapy, and exercise your bhakti muscle. Give the holy name and books to people, because otherwise they remain unfortunate. So that's one, and there's others. So he says, Madhyama Bhaktas give bhakti, and then there's lots of other things, but that's the main message. And then chapter 2 is, now bhakti has begun, how does it grow? And then we heard about, the stages of bhakti. Begins with hearing, nourishing faith, adar shraddha, sadhu sangha. In the association of sadhus we hear. We do with sadhus what sadhus do. That's the next stage, bhajana kriya. So that's 3 stages out of 9 already. So this chapter 2 discusses the preliminary faith being nourished by sadhu sangha. Who is a sadhu, and how to associate with sadhus, and what does it look like? Then the different bhajana kriya, there's unsteady and steady. So there's some introduction to that idea. And then we heard about, as that bhajana kriya proceeds, chapter 3 is eradication of unwanted things. We're already into item 4 out of the 9. Anartha nivritti. And we heard the most prominent one, a long section on sadhu ninda, because sadhu sangha is needed, but then you get together with sadhus and suppose you do sadhu ninda. We had some discussion about sadhu ninda. And so what not to do, what to do, and other offenses. Because offenses, we heard anartha nivritti. Anartha is unwanted things. Artha and anartha. We didn't go into it in great depth because it's a synopsis. I want to get on to the next chapter. But the synopsis includes 2 very important verses from Rupa Goswami's writings. One of those is what bhakti is. Anyabhilasha Shunyam. We recited it many times together. Many devotees know the verse. Anukulyena Krishnarushilanam. And the emphasis is not just what bhakti isn't, but what bhakti is. The first part is what bhakti isn't. Without jnana and karma, big emphasis in 2 chapters. Karma and jnana are not necessary for bhakti. Bhakti is independent. Karma and jnana, to have efficacy, it's dependent upon bhakti. Without bhakti, there isn't efficacy. They're not effective. They can't help one come towards the goal. So, and knowledge and detachment arise causelessly from bhakti. Bhakti is independent. Like backwards, forwards, and from the side. Bhakti is independent. So, bhakti awakens through sadhu sangha, and then, Anartha nivritti stage, through the sadhu sangha bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, unwanted things become eliminated. We heard in the sadhana stage, that's us. In the sadhana stage, there's 2 things that happen as the seed of bhakti opens. 2 leaves. One leaf in Sanskrit is kleshagni, the minimizing eradication of kleshas. And kleshas arise from ignorance, so ignorance is eradicated, kleshas are eradicated. And shubha, da, shubha, auspiciousness, we heard there's different kinds of shubha, or auspiciousness, but bhakti's shubha supersedes and surpasses all other shubhas. We heard some discussion from Vishwanath about that. So then, as anartha nivritti becomes matured, then yesterday we heard about nishtha. So we're already at stage 5 out of 9. Just like a description. Now, practically speaking, anartha nivritti can take a while. And that's, we're in that, most of us, even in the preliminary stages, there's some anartha eradication going on. But then there's this chunk of time that we heard how effectiveness in anartha nivritti is dependent upon, if you want to pass through that stage quickly, or more quickly than slower, more slowly, is the intensity of effort, the concentration, the purposeful effort in primary activities of bhakti, hearing and chanting. It's Bhagavad Dharma, or the bhakti path, rests upon sound, and the intention or attentiveness in those hearing and chanting activities are most important. And developing some attraction for those activities. So it's how-to and it's measures of developing the stage of steadiness. That's what we heard yesterday. There's many things I'm not touching on, but those are essences. So now we're ready for this evening. What comes after steadiness? Krishna Loka, right? No, there's some other stuff before Krishna Loka. So that's where we are. That's it's from the verse. There's another Rupa Goswami verse besides the definition of bhakti. There are stages of bhakti that he recites several times. And now we're at the chapter of ruchi, attaining taste. Attainment of taste. So we're going to quickly go over 2 chapters. Ruchi and Asakti. So here's what he writes. Ruchi means taste. When, quoting Vishwanath, when the devotee takes into his heart the golden medallion of bhakti, shining brightly by the fire of steady practice and propelled by its energy, then ruchi appears. Could this light disappear? Not that the fan is nice, but the fan is good. But
yes.
The light. Okay, thank you. It's light till really late tonight, so. Gold, when it's made molten, it shines even more brightly. Molten gold. Gold has a certain color in molten gold. So that's, he's using this metaphor. Can somebody, can you check the focus? It's kind of fuzzy. A little better. Try it again. Okay. Shining brightly by the fire of steady practice. It's repeating something that he said at the end of the previous chapter, but steady practice, even amplified and say the intensity of practice, the intensity of purpose behind the practice, and propelled by its own energy, then ruchi appears. Not available at Walmart and Kmart and Target. It's It arises from within the bhakti process itself. His description of symptoms considers everything except hearing and chanting, and specifically hearing and chanting about Krishna, not the other topics that we engage ourselves in hearing and chanting about. Waste of time. No fatigue when hearing and chanting. Great attachment for hearing and chanting. So it starts with hearing and chanting, and then it evolves to this stage. Can evolve to this stage. He gives an example, and the example, common one, is jaundice. When one is jaundiced, things that are sweet taste bitter. It's a Rupa Goswami verse from Nectar of Instruction, text 7. It tastes bitter. But with faith, because that's from previous chapters, Madhurya Kadambini, then the jaundice disease condition subsides and that which is sweet tastes sweet. Even if one, this is important for all of us, this is the pre-ruchi stage, that's us. Even if one does not have the taste, one should continue to hear and chant with faith. It'll get you there. It's the right medicine. Sugar candy. The jiva's heart, infected with ignorance and other kleshas, becomes cured by the medicine of repeated hearing, chanting, and other devotional methods. Taste restores gradually. There was a previous metaphor that someone that has a fever, and when you have a fever, besides the fever, you don't have any appetite. And if you try to eat something, even if you don't have an appetite, it's a mistake. It aggravates the fever. It doesn't give you strength, it just aggravates the fever. But generally speaking, when someone has fever, they say, would you like some broth? So make the body weak. But you don't feed the fever. Starve the fever. Prabhupada's expression. Starve the fever, feed a cold. And take medicine. And as the medicine gradually deals with whatever is the cause of the fever, then some appetite restores, and then a little bit of nourishment, and a little bit of strength, and so forth. It's a gradual process. That's the emphasis here. And we heard about kleshas. That's one of the two leaves. For those of you that were with us, you'll remember a leaf has an upper surface and a lower surface. And the upper surface is smooth and the lower surface is rough, commonly. So he compares the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and the Raganuga sadhana bhakti as the smooth and the rough, or the upper and the lower leaves, both of which serve in this Kleshagni capacity and Shubhada capacity. Could you turn this light back down? Who turned it on? Okay, we're okay? Is clear so far? He then goes on to explain there's two types of ruchi. That's nice to know. Dependent on the excellence of the elements and not dependent upon the excellence of the elements. I'll just a little sharing, because it's, when I read this, I thought of, there's a gentleman, I think I won't give his name, he wouldn't mind if I give his name, but a congregation member in Harrisburg who was visiting the Gitanagari Center, and he wanted to have a bhakti program at his home, like a big estate doctor. So he invited all of his friends, And he was really clear with me. He said, I and the people that are my close associates, the elements are really important. Bring your best kirtan singers, because the name is the name, I know that. But unless the elements are excellent, my friends aren't going to come back again for the next program. Just that's that's our limitation. And the prasadam, and etc. So there's more to say on that, but for some people that's really important, and some people that's not. In the more advanced state, we'll see its importance subsides. I was told, I haven't read it anywhere, maybe one day I'll read it somewhere, somebody has read it, I'd appreciate you telling me where it is. I was told that Bhaktisiddhanta had, when he had gatherings, there were certain persons who he really liked to hear kirtan from, and they weren't really especially the most gifted singers, like musically. The sound, because Bengalis, the sound of their voice is really like angelic and sweet. But this one person he liked to hear from because of the bhakti. It was he had the acumen, the spiritual acumen to feel and receive the bhakti of the singer, and so the elements weren't so excellent, but the bhakti was, and that's what was most attractive to him. So, to explain this, dependent upon the excellence of the elements, kirtan, deity worship, prasadam. Prasadam. I don't know if you have had the experience I have of excellent cooking, and cooking that's made with such devotion that you're feeling fully satisfied even with small amounts, just because of the quality of devotion of the person who's preparing you. Or deity worship. I'll just give one example. Lokanath Goswami's deity Radha Vinod. So, during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was an exalted Vaishnava, contemporary of his, Lokanath. And Lokanath was a kind of reclusive person. Not kind of. He liked privacy. He was living in Vrindavan, but in such a remote place no one could find him. That was what he wanted. And then one day, a Brahmin came and handed him a bag and said, "This is for you," and he walked away. And he opened up the bag, and inside was the deity. And I'm living in a forest. How can I worship a deity? And so he was calling for the Brahmin to come back and take the deity. And the deity said, "I want to be worshipped by you." What do you do when the deity says that? But I don't have anything. He said, "Well, whatever you have." But that's okay, give that. So he just, worshipped with leaves and whatever he had. There's like details. And that was his mood. He eventually was brought to stay in the same ashram where Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur was staying. So that same area. Rupa and Sanatana Goswami invited him to come and stay. He liked where he was, but he went because they requested. They wanted his association. And that deity is such a fantastic deity. And that deity is now in Jaipur. Now the deity in Jaipur of Radha Vinod is not in one of these majestic temples. Govindaji and Gopinath and Madan Mohan and architecture and opulence, and it's in a little like second floor walk-up, and not a big temple room, but the devotion, as soon as you walk in the temple room, the devotion just knocks you over. And the pujari is in the same mood. He's just a very simple man, very devotional, radiating like his love for the deity and the deity's love for him. It's just, got a knife, you can cut it really thick and palpable. Next time you go to Jaipur, somebody that didn't know all of what I just said went to Jaipur. This is, you know, this year, as far as my memory goes. And they had the same experience. Like, you know, everything that I just described, in their own words, of course. So, the elements aren't, you know, knock your socks off. But so moving. So, some things are like that. Some people, seeing it's nice seeing the deity very opulently worshipped and decorated and garlanded and clothing and thises and that's and ornaments and things. It's inspiring. It's inspiring, no doubt. So there's a stage of ruchi where it's dependent upon the elements, and according to Vishwanath, this indicates there's some trace of dosha, some impurity, dosha, bhasa. Then there's a type of ruchi that is not dependent upon the excellence of elements, indicating there's no more impurity. That person with that ruchi laments. They're genuinely spiritually humble, feeling, oh, I wasted so much time. Oh, I've lived my life with so much lack of taste and attraction to hearing and chanting. He paraphrases the person, I am so unfortunate. I kept the precious jewel of bhakti received from my spiritual master tied in the hem of my cloth. I lick up the bitter-tasting, deceitful, profane gossip as if nectar. I become sleeping during katha, but my ears perk up. Whenever there's vulgar talk, I have stained the assembly of devotees. Now for some of us, it's not like, you know, we don't have those same feelings, but have the same situation. Not necessarily vulgar talk, but, you know, gossipy talk. Devotional service is like a dance, and the dance instructor is ruchi. No, I mentioned at the beginning, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is a through and through Rasika Bhakta. He makes no pretense about it. He's a Rasika Bhakta. And you hear from him, you're going to hear rasa, because that's him. That's his consciousness. At this second stage of ruchi, one has become fixed in seva nishtha, fixed in pure unalloyed service to Krishna. So that's a quick chapter. Chapter 6. The next is enchantment of the heart, or asakti. That's the meaning. His translation of the word asakti means attachment. Just like our Rupa Goswami verse. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayuntitaha. Anasaktasya, we mean without asakti, without attachment to vishaya, sense enjoyment. That's a teaching of detachment, Rupa Goswami's teaching. We accept things, but without the intention of sense enjoyment. So, asakti is enchantment of the heart. Attachment for Krishna, which develops when taste for bhajan becomes extremely deep. Thus the ruchi leads to asakti. The taste for bhajan, ruchi, becomes extremely deep, then attachment. His explanation, the desire creeper of bhakti bears clusters of buds, like spring. There's clusters of buds before there's flowers and then fruits. Spring is such a nice season, isn't it? Krishna says it's the best. And just a little sharing. Two sharings. In the room where I stay in Chicago temple, there's this tree right outside. Practically reach out and touch the branches of the tree. And in the spring, there's clusters of buds. But they're not open yet in that night. And then all of a sudden there's a blush. There's all this color. And then it's like snowfall because all the petals fall and just like, you know. And then there's a little fruit that's left inside. That's like, you know, for the squirrels and all those other people that need something. So the tree is supplying very lovingly. And then it can make other trees because inside there's some seeds. The nature's arrangement. So spring, this is the asakti stage, is the clusters of buds that come. It's the beginning of spring. And then the blush and the blossom that comes following that. And so another sharing is, every now and then I travel. And as I travel, I get to see different seasons. And I get to see the spring season like 15 times. Because, in, you know, different, just like before coming here, I was in Minneapolis, and the sun rises 15 minutes earlier, and sun sets, 30 minutes earlier and 30 minutes later. The days are longer out there than here, by, you know, 1 hour. Just Minneapolis. So what to speak of, you know, further, anyway. So I get to see spring season so many times, it's like amazing. There's this place, I like to go to Portland in the spring, because there's so many trees, it's a land of trees. And there's this one, you know, hope you don't mind, it's really off topic, but there's this lane where the person I stay with is Jai Sachinanda, and his house used to be on such and such lane. And you drive down the lane, and it's like you're in a Walt Disney movie. Because in all directions, there's just these beautiful flowering trees that are laden with flowers and leaning over, and just enough space for the car to move through. You have to drive slowly. The trees are so laden with flowers. It's like an animated Walt Disney movie or something. And it's not, you know, it's not animation. It's real nature. Spring is such a nice season. And the Sakti is such a nice stage of bhakti. We should want to go there. We should really want to go there. The desired creeper of bhakti bears clusters of buds, heralding the swift appearance of the flowers of bhava and then the fruits of prema. It's, Prabhupada explains that one of the qualities of a devotee is kavi. Kavi means learned or poet. And the explanation given is, in order to explain the spiritual realm, which is what's coming up, is you have to use metaphor. because it's beyond our experience. So metaphor in literature, metaphor and simile are something that's within your experiences used to indicate something that's beyond your experience. It's diminutive because our experience is one thing, what's beyond our experience is not the same. It's not a one-to-one correlation, but it points in the direction of something. And so to describe Krishna's pastimes, the exchanges of love, the feelings of love, the entities that are in the spiritual realm, it's very poetic. It must be, in order to give the indication, like this golden medallion example, that's melted by the fire of practice and intense devotion. That's the ruchi was compared like that, and now asakti. In this enchantment of the heart, Krishna is the exclusive object of one's devotional activities. Ooh. Exclusive object of one's devotional activities. There's a little description of the difference between the two, ruchi and asakti. Ruchi has bhajan as its main object, asakti has the Lord as its main object. There he is. Prior to asakti, one has to apply effort to contract desire and fix the mind on the Lord. Prior. In the nishtha, this is interesting. Nishtha stage, one cannot detect how and when the mind withdraws from spirit. When you reach the asakti stage, you cannot detect how and when the mind withdraws from matter. Absorption is, the word is used as automatic, but it's not. Boyajan has written a very nice article. Automatic doesn't mean mechanical. It means it flows naturally. It's a byproduct of it. It's a symptom of absorption. Is a symptom of the asakti stage. There's no effort required. Just a few more. So here's a Narada Bhakti Sutra reference that is made by Vishwanath. Although devotional service is one, it becomes manifest in 11 forms of attachment. And those of you that are joining us, if you just give your contact information to Vamsidhara, he'll provide you with this whole presentation, so you don't have to worry about that. Attachment to the, it's in the book also. He'll give you a PDF of the book. Attachment to the Lord's glorious qualities, to His beauty, to worshiping Him, to remembering Him, to serving Him, that's 5, to reciprocating with Him as a friend, to caring for Him as a parent, dealing with Him as a lover. Notice this is different rasas with Krishna. To surrender one's whole self to Him, Atma-nivedana. To being absorbed in thought of Him, Vishnu Smaranam. And to experiencing separation from Him, this last is the supreme attachment. Narada Bhakti Sutra. And of course, Lord Chaitanya's teachings emphasize the same. This mood of the residents of Vrindavan, particularly mentioned are the gopis, and not only their feelings of love and attachment for Krishna, but their feelings of intense separation from Krishna. Because intense separation from Krishna intensifies the feelings of love. There's this nice description among many. Even when the gopis are meeting with Krishna, Sambhoga, they're feeling, that meeting is intensified feeling, after some short time Krishna is going to be gone. They're anticipating separation. So it strengthens the mood of love when meeting, just the anticipation. And then when Krishna is gone, the intensification of love spikes. It's a mystery, but it's a kind of attachment, separation. Other aspects of asakti, this is the last slide for the chapter. He likes to do this, he does this chapter by chapter. We showed a chart. When you get this presentation, you can look again at the chart. But spiritualization becomes purna, or complete, of I and mind. So I, in the material conception, there's a material conception of I and mind. On the body. And what's mind is what's connected to this body. My home, my family, my bank balance, the fruits of my work because it comes from my body, and all the things that are connected to in my paraphernalia, my stuff, I and mind. Material, I and mind. And the bhakti process spiritualizes all of that and becomes purna, or complete. One doesn't see anything other than Krishna and Krishna's, including myself. I am Krishna's. Krishna, I am yours. The material aspects of life, gandha, there's a trace. Although absorption, spiritualization of I and mind, there's still trace. And meditation becomes very deep. So now here's two examples. This is Queen Kunti's prayers, where her meditation is deep. She's speaking as if it's not, but she's deep. Oh, Lord of Madhu, the Ganges, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my mind, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being deviated to anyone else. That's a something. The object is the Lord, and there's only one thing. And here's another reference, and this is my edition, it's not in the book. Look out there. We have another wing over here. Okay, this is Kapila Dev's teachings to Devahuti. She's heard about devotional service, and she then says, paraphrasing, bhakti is pure, but what if one's consciousness isn't? Can you engage in bhakti if your consciousness isn't pure? Do the modes of nature have some impact on bhakti? And he says yes. Bhakti is pure, but someone's consciousness may not be pure. So there's bhakti rendered in the consciousness of one in the mode of passion, ignorance, passion, goodness, and then he describes transcendental bhakti, unmixed with the modes. That's this one. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hear the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. So, just to repeat a distinction made by Vishwanath, in the Ruchi stage, there's a taste for the activities of bhakti. In the Asakti stage is attachment for the object of the activities of bhakti. In the ruchi stage, where there's a stage where the elements are important, and there's a stage where the elements don't have that same importance. It's the name, the form, the quality, the pastimes. It induces ecstasy. And so, if you read, when you study Nectar Devotion carefully, you'll find all of this explained in great detail. This is just a real quick summary, because some of these items of devotional service, they're stimulations of ecstatic love, the hearing, etc., of the form of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna, the activities of Krishna. They're stimulations of ecstatic love. And that stimulation of ecstatic love is happening even in the not yet matured stage. Just like the tree before it has this cluster. When spring starts, before there's the cluster of buds, the tree is coming out of its winter phase, and little leaves. And then after the leaves unfurl, that's like another wonderful part of spring. Then the clusters, and then the flowers, and then the fruits. It's a very happy time. The bhakti is a very happy process. And so this is our final class, and you'll have to cover the subject matter yourselves, because you have to get your binoculars out, because it's really up there. The bhava and prema stages. It's amazing. He's using poetic language to describe, but he has experienced. So it's not, perhaps maybe I think I heard. He's giving you what it's like from the bhava and prema stage. It's kind of over our heads, but it's an explanation of those final two stages. So any discussion? I saw one hand first, and then you. Do we have a microphone? Look at that. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru. I have two questions. One on second class Vajra Kriya, and then one on today's class.
Okay.
The six gradations of the Anishtata Bhakti, starting from Utsahamai to Taranga Rangini.
Yeah.
The fourth and...
For those of you that weren't with us, these are terminologies that we heard in an earlier chapter. There's progressive stages of unsteadiness towards steadiness. And that's what he's referring to. Go ahead.
So the fourth and fifth stage, the fourth stage is where there are material attachments which are not going away.
Yeah.
Like a tug of war.
Yes, yes.
And the fifth stage is, which should be the way to remove the material attachments.
No,
it's
it's things that are. This is my understanding. I can pull up the exact language, but there's things that we do that are detrimental to our bhakti, and we struggle to overcome them. There are things that are beneficial to help our bhakti, and we struggle to implement them. Those are the two.
So isn't the fifth stage, if I'm able to do the properly, take the vows and do the devotional service properly, we've overcome the previous stage?
Well, it'll give you strength. It's not automatic.
So my question is like how it seems like if I'm not able to make the vows and...
You do them both. And you don't get mechanical here. Let's get devotional. And when bhakti rises, then this one becomes easier, and that one becomes easier because this one becomes easier. Or if that one becomes easier, then this one is helped. So it's the bhakti principle And it can manifest differently, overcoming negative or improving the positive. It's the bhakti principle, and it's manifested in two different ways. So work on bhakti, don't work on, the mechanical.
So keep moving forward. Keep.
Yeah, you got it.
Um,
Yes, next.
in today's class in Ruchi, Krishna Chakravarti Thakur says that for those who are in this stage, they don't, considering anything except hearing and chanting is waste of time, and they don't get fatigue from hearing and chanting. So,
How are householders supposed to do that? That's your
no,
question.
no. Does serving the devotees, deity worship also fall into this?
Yes, he that came earlier. Yes. That is to say, when serving the devotees, here's how Jiva Goswami puts it in Bhakti Sandarbha. There's 9 processes. The essence of all the 9 processes is chanting. We don't serve the deity without chanting. We don't serve the devotees without chanting, because it's the essence. So a measure of our serving the deities is we help, the devotees, is we help the devotee make their Krishna connection. And so that's part of our Shravanam and Kirtanam activity. This service of the devotee. The best friend is one who reminds you of Krishna. So we want to be the best friends with the devotees. And so as we're doing something, it's not just for their body or their mind, or even, we want to be a servant in their Remembrance of Krishna program, the project of their life. So that's what service of devotees. So there may be, so many maybes, different ways that service to the devotees can manifest. But the essence is this Remembrance of Krishna. You want me to give some examples, or what I'm saying is clear?
It's clear.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Maharaj, while hearing this class, on the one hand, I'm appreciating how sweet and pure these stages of bhakti are.
And on the other hand?
And on the other hand, like you described, they're so high and totally unrelatable. And reflecting on recent events, we can see how kind Krishna is, that he arranges such glorious passing or coming back to him for those who are striving to take shelter of him. So this doubt is arising in my mind. Do I have to make this, it seems like, incredibly difficult striving for these stages that are so incomprehensible?
We don't strive for stages, we strive for Krishna. This is, my answer to my response to what you're saying is similar to what responding to his question. It's a stage. We don't aspire for the stage, we aspire for our Krishna connection. Wherever we are, whatever in the fluctuating ups and downs of our spiritual life, the essence is this one thing. It was repeated several times at the beginning. Anukoyena Krishna Anushilana. That's the essence. It's not striving for a stage. It's striving for pleasing Krishna with our existence. Our speech, our actions, our heart, pleasing to Krishna. We're striving for that. That's what you strive for. And there's stages.
Maharaj, may I ask how to not become lax in the knowledge of how kind Krishna is and how he adjusts things? And
well, associate with devotees that understand that and hear the scripture. Engage in the processes of bhakti. To the degree that so that's the how-to is the intent, something that we heard earlier, you weren't with us earlier. The effectiveness of moving through the anartha-nivritti stage is the intensity of the intention in our hearing and chanting. That's how to. That's where our attention should go. The intensity of the intention of our hearing and chanting. Not just, assiduous behaviors, but the intensity of the intention behind our hearing and chanting. That's bhakti, the intention to please Krishna. So the intention may be like Rupa, I want a kingdom. But that intention got changed to, I don't need a kingdom, I want to be with Vishnu. But that came by the grace of Narada. But his intensity of his endeavors connected with the mercy of Narada. Yes, up front, right here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. 2 questions I have. One is to clarify that one doesn't need to go to all the stages until the Prema Bhakti to go back to Godhead. Is that correct?
Say it again, who did what?
One doesn't need to go to all the stages to reach to the Prema stage.
One does not need to go through all these stages.
Until the Prema stage to go back to Godhead. Is that correct?
I don't know, did you get that from Vishwanath's teaching, or?
No, I was just trying to
make a connection between you want to go back to God and to have to reach Prema. That's it?
Yeah, that is one question. Yes. Is that?
Well, let me ask you. In Krishna Loka, are living entities on their way to purity, or they're pure? Is there's still residual stuff hanging around those devotees that kind of like, struggling a little bit here and there, but pretty nice? Or is it Shuddha? So,
I was just trying to...
We have to become Shuddha. You have to become fire to enter into fire. And if you're not, you become fire, because to enter into fire you burn. But to enter into fire, you have to become fire. So we have to become pure. And so the answer is, entrance into the spiritual realm requires these stages. Now, how exactly it unfolds, there's the standard and there's the special, exceptional arrangements. But the standard is what's being outlined.
I was just trying to relate to 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, whatever one remembers at the
Could
time.
you hold the microphone a little further away, because it's really hard to hear you.
So I am trying to relate to 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
8th chapter, okay.
So whatever remembers one at the time of death, he will achieve.
Yes,
So
yes.
just trying to see, by the mercy of devotees and Krishna,
Yes.
one get an opportunity.
Yes, yes. Let's take the event that just happened, Mahati Gopi's departure. When you read the next 2 chapters, Bhava and Prema, I don't think you'll find the Bhava and Prema stages. You'll find much more like, like this example Bhavaram Prasad said of, there she is, and even in her condition, she got up and had to do some service for the deities in New Vrindavan, because that's her. No, I don't think you'll find the Bhava and Prema stage as described in these next 2 chapters. And we heard, in the Asakti stage, there's the material aspect, there's a trace. Gandha, it's like fragrance. And so if someone is in the condition of what was going on, by the fortune of the devotees that were with her, and her constant focus on service, where is this? define it. The stage of being absorbed in service to Krishna. That's required. That's the enter into fire. To become fire, you have to become fire to enter into fire. Absorption in Krishna. Now, if we're not fully there, Krishna can step in. This is the special mercy case. Kripa Shakti. Krishna can step in and deliver anybody he wants. So Prabhupada's explanation is, a university may award an honorary degree. Don't count on it. Better to enroll in the university and take the exams and get the degree. That's the standard. But the university can award an honorary degree to a Bhagavad.
So my second question is regarding anartha nivritti. As one practices bhajana kriya, so the anartha, some of the anarthas will go away easily, and some of them will be able to see the anarthas, but it's very difficult to work on them.
Yes.
So is it, the intensity of the devotion that gives the capacity to work on those anarthas?
Well, Krishna helps you overcome the anartha, and we have to show Krishna that we want Krishna. And Krishna will carry you beyond, not your effort alone. It's Krishna. Krishna is the deliverer. It's not our effort, it's the deliverer. Krishna is the deliverer. Here he is. Krishna's helper.
So the question is, I think I got the answer, Maharaj. If I'm not able to work on it, if I'm having struggle in getting rid of those anarthas, so my desire...
Give up the idea that you're going to get rid of anarthas. Accept the idea that Krishna will help you get rid of the anarthas. You show Krishna, so I'm just at the same message but a little stronger now. Karta hamiti manyate isn't going to be effective in bhakti process. You'll continue to struggle with anarthas till the cows come home. Life after life. So, don't be in that position if I'm going to be you assiduously make efforts to please Krishna, and part of pleasing Krishna is this unclean thing in my heart needs to be cleaned. So you're not just letting Krishna become a janitor for you, but you're relying upon Krishna and making efforts. That's how it works. Like he explained this. There's the effort, and the power of ruchi itself draws one to this position of taste. It's the power of Radharani. Because Radharani is expansion, is Bhakti Devi, and Bhakti Devi pulls one. And we're making some effort. So it's the combination of those two. Just make sure you have that clear picture. Effort and mercy combined. It's not, I have to get rid of the anarthas. You'll have a long struggle. Then he issued mama maya dorakteya, mama begin prapadyante. So what does that prapadyante? It's these two. And then there's divisions of those two. Effort and mercy. Clear?
You mentioned in the ruchi stage that even if we don't have ruchi, and continue with that.
Yeah, you got it. No lamenting, right? Okay, keep going.
So, for me, I feel like if I do something without ruchi or interest, then it's not attentive. It's not, good quality. So, doesn't it consider as a nama aparad or?
No. That's keeping it really simple. There's gradations of namabhas, but the step above namaparad is, I recognize I'm down here, and I'm making efforts to go beyond this position that I'm in. Now, there can be laxity or intensity of effort, but making an effort to go, I'm here, and I want to go beyond here. That's the intermediate stage, the clearing stage, Prabhupada uses the word. So think in those terms. Don't think in terms of what I'm not, but think in terms of these are the teachings of our acharyas that come to understand through the bhakti process some things that I didn't even know were there before the bhakti process started. And now I'm becoming tuned into these unwanted things that are in the heart. And so I'm striving. That's the clearing stage. To stay in the clearing stage. Continue to hear and chant. It's faith in the process, and faith in the scriptures to teach the process, and it's faith in the teachers that are teaching what the scriptures teach about the process. You're nourishing faith in the bhakti process. You're connecting with Krishna through Bhakti Devi, who's nourishing your heart, helping you go beyond your shortcomings. She's very merciful. Someone else in the back, all the way in the back.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. My question was difference between the asakti and ruchi. Asakti is focuses on the bhajan, but ruchi is focusing on Lord. When we are doing
So the other way around. Say it again. Ruchi is upon the process, the hearing and chanting process, taste, and asakti is attachment for the Lord, the object of the process.
My question was, what is the difference? When I'm doing the bhajan also, it is indirectly, it's focusing on the Lord.
It's a stage. It's similar. The third time I'm responding in almost the same way. These are just describing stages of bhakti. And in the stage of bhakti meaning, by definition, the intention to please Krishna. So as your intention to please Krishna matures, becomes purified, becomes strengthened, there's an attraction, a taste for the activities of pleasing Krishna. The activities themselves, the hearing and chanting activities that are pleasing to Krishna. Doing them in such a way that it's pleasing to Krishna. Just a little sharing. I appreciated how we did this. Yesterday, day before yesterday, where it was? Thursday. The youth gathering. Mukunda, we had a kirtan in honor of Mahati Gopi. So Mukunda shared before he was leading the kirtan and said, we came for for quite some stretch of time. And she always reminded us, the kirtan is for the pleasure of Krishna. Let us all focus on the pleasure of Krishna during the kirtan. And then Mukunda said, when devotees come together and that's the focus of pleasing Krishna, then that synergy will lift all of us to another level. So that's the taste for the activity of pleasing Krishna through hearing and chanting. That's where the attention, so it's a stage of bhakti when one can achieve that. And then another stage of bhakti, the intention of pleasing Krishna, where the Lord is the whole focus, their attachment to the person whose name is being chanted. Okay? It's a stage of bhakti. Think of it that way. Not like it's mental adjustment. It's a stage of bhakti. Okay? Yes, there's a behind the corner over here. It's coming over this way, Juanji. Can you pass the microphone up? No, that's good, that's good, that's good. Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, my question is related to the consciousness of the person in Ruchi that Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborated on. He feels like he has contaminated the association of Vaishnavas, very attracted to gossip and so forth, extremely humble. We are recommended to read the scripture from the perspective of, like it's a GPS map for us to where we are and making further progress. At the same time, it seems like as one makes progress, the consciousness inhibits one to ever think you're past anartha-nivriti. So could you comment on these higher stages? It seems like these higher stages of evaluating if someone is on this higher stage is not so much for oneself, because it's subjectively I'm quite low, but it's more for evaluating other devotees. Or am I understanding this incorrectly?
I'm having a hard time understanding what you're asking, and by looking at the foreheads of some other people in the audience, they are too.
A devotee at least how I'm understanding Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's description, will not feel themselves in the Nishtha or the Ruchi stage.
Well, you know, it depends. Yes and no. You know, yes and no. That is, that they will feel themselves profoundly humble, but what that profoundly humble feels like, you're not going to be able to sit in your seat and understand what it feels like. They're feeling profoundly humble, but it's different than our feeling, whatever profoundly humble might mean to us today. It's a spiritualization of that feeling of humility. And exactly what they feel about themselves is on the one hand and the other hand. And it depends upon, you know, a spontaneous exhibition of indication, let's say, from Sukha Soul, how to act in a certain way, in a certain circumstance. In some cases, they'll be very, you know, bold. In some cases, they'll be very meek and humble. So be careful. So you're specifically, will they ever feel that they're beyond the stage of, just like when Haridas Thakur was beaten in 21 marketplaces and survived, and he was brought before the Qazi and said, you know, actually you're sadhu. His feeling was, this happened to me because I heard blasphemy. So what was he feeling? You know, I don't know what he was feeling. I'm not gonna, you know, I know what he said, but I don't know what that feeling is. What is, it's a profound kind of humility. Fully spiritualized. So, you know, I would be reluctant to say, yes, it's true that a person who is very advanced never feels that they've gone beyond an artha-nivritti stage. Prabhupada, you know, there's never been a time in my life when I've forgotten Krishna. He didn't say I'm at the Prema stage and beyond an Arjuna Vritti stage, but he exhibited symptoms of prema. He would check those symptoms, but he would sometimes exhibit those symptoms. But at the same time, so his Markine Bhagavad Dharma, he was visited by Rupa Goswami in Radha Damodar temple. And Krishna came and consoled him when crossing the Atlantic Ocean. When he reached Boston, he's feeling himself unqualified. So how do we understand that? It's the nature of an elevated Vaishnava. Unless you make my words sufficiently powerful, I'm powerless. And that's true. So is he feeling I'm still at the Arjuna Vritti stage? I don't think you can say that.
I had a question on the statement of the re-spiritualization of I and mind.
Okay.
Just trying to understand how the distinction between ego and mind, because it seems that the mind is more or less a layer on top of the ego. So the ego is going to be pervading our mind.
Yes.
So how does one discriminate, or is it in our thinking pattern, in our speaking, in our interactions with others, how can we understand this false ego is coming out, or this is a pure thought, or a pure way of, is it too subtle, too inexorably connected?
Here, two things. It's not that the mind, I'm just editing the language. The mind is not a layer on top of false ego. Rather, false ego is subtle and it pervades the whole shebang. Mind, intelligence, the body, the senses, and our outlook, and extends out to the world. We see through that filter, false ego filter. But the removal of false ego, the dissolving of false ego, or the spiritualizing of false ego to become true ego, which is the topic, spiritualization, conception of self and mind, it happens on the soul level. And so when the soul level becomes awakened by bhakti, then the darkness of the covering of false ego, etc., that's the subtlest, and then all the denser layers or aspects of the covering of the living entity also become illuminated and spiritualized. It happens at the soul level, and everything becomes illumined, becomes spiritualized. Yes. Well, that's another that specific reference to the Bhagavad Gita verse is the residual tendencies after prolonged. This is my understanding of. There may be other meanings, but one of the meanings from our acharyas is Arjuna has a doubt. What's that? I get it. These things that you said in the previous 3 verses, and now there's knowledge of how to come to me is what's guiding the life of the bhakta, your devotee. But my doubt is, what about all this so many lifetimes of being involved in material existence and the residual tendency. What about that? And Draupadi, no. Devahuti's question is similar. That when knowledge is there, still tendency is very strong. Residual tendency is very strong. Like this habits that are bad habits. It's hard to overcome bad habits once there's a habit. Not an easy thing. Even you know better, and so that's an unsteady stage. So that verse, my understanding of an application of that verse is those lingering tendencies Krishna personally addresses. We don't have the capacity, nor is our effort going to make it happen. Krishna is going to make it happen. With the torchlight of knowledge, I destroy the darkness born of ignorance. So is that, yes, the darkness born of ignorance when that's gone, but then false ego isn't, the darkness of false ego isn't covering living entity anymore. I guess you could say that. But the bhakti tendency becomes so strong, and the reciprocation with Krishna becomes so strong, then the false ego tendencies, the I and mine tendencies that are long-standing, like who can say how long, standing, they're addressed. And that's addresses your question, Sridhar, also. It's the mercy of Krishna that we're relying upon. Without the mercy of Krishna, are we going to get there? Who would want to get there even without it? Even if you could. Okay, so, all right. How about out there in the balcony seats? Comments, questions? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
March is another question.
There is another question. We're not done yet. Hang on.
No, actually, so in one of the slides there was mention about how we should think of everything as belonging to Krishna.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Could you go to the slide just so I can see it?
I don't recall where it is.
Okay. So from any person's understanding or my understanding, like a lot of things that we possess, say house and all.
Speak slowly. The one of the what? Say it slowly again, please, because you were speaking up and I got left behind.
Okay. So what I'm saying is a lot of things that people possess, like
a lot of things that people possess.
Yeah, they're belonging.
Stuff, yeah, okay.
Stuff. House or anything, it's connected to their security in life, like their children. So how do you not think it's yours?
By understanding it's not yours.
So for instance, someone's trying to...
Well, yeah, like that, it's gone. Is it yours?
No, but if someone's trying to say, take it, then it is natural that you feel like defending it.
It's not, knowledge can take away ignorance, is what I'm saying. The reality is, it's not yours. Because if it was yours, who could take it? It's not yours.
No, I understand that, but...
okay, but knowledge will take away that tendency.
Okay.
That's the beginning. That's a foothold.
Mm-hmm.
But knowledge isn't enough. We have learned that, isn't it? It's right in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1. Read those first verses.
Okay, but what I'm actually asking is, so in the absolute sense it's not ours, because we are not this body, we are not, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
We would still be trying to defend it, right? And
yeah, that's the tendency. Yeah. So bhakti, the answer is, bhakti is the only solution, because knowledge isn't enough. Knowledge isn't enough. Knowledge can help you. So it just keeps, knowledge isn't enough. We keep going back to the tendency. So what do you do about the tendency? Bhakti. And so how does bhakti take away the tendency? Krishna.
Okay.
And the natural quality of the soul in connection with Krishna, that Krishna should be pleased, it dissolves the tendency. Is that good news? Okay. He guesses. Well, you know, you don't have that experience. But that's what the exalted souls are teaching us. And specifically, here's what, you know who Devahuti is? The mother of Kapila Dev, who taught Sankhya philosophy.
Can you say that again?
Kapila Dev, his mother is Devahuti. Karnavoni and Devahuti. So, you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So, Kapila Dev teaches Sankhya philosophy, right? You familiar with that?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's a big section of the Bhagavatam, and Sankhya is knowledge of matter over here, knowledge of spirit over here. And there's categories of matter and there's categories of spirit. That's Sankhya.
Mm-hmm.
So he's teaching Sankhya. And I'm paraphrasing to keep it really simple. She says, I get it. I know the philosophy. Knowledge is one thing, but Kapila Dev, the living entity, has been in this material world for so long. How many lifetimes? And the tendency is so strong. Even if I get knowledge and I'm way up here, tendency, is it possible? Because look in any direction, you see the material energy. We're tiny and this material energy is all pervading all around us, and can you really get beyond that tendency thing? I have a doubt. And he says yes. And here's how. Bhakti dissolves the subtle body. False ego, the material mind, material intelligence. Alka-Seltzer. It's just dissolved. It's gone. And there isn't anything else that can do it. Knowledge can take you up. Boop, 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 boop. We all have the experience. Meditation can take you up. Austerities, charity, philanthropy. It's not that those things shouldn't be done, but those things are inadequate, incomplete. It's in the Madhurya Kadambini, it's in chapter 2. Bhakti alone is independent. And bhakti can dissolve its material tendency. Bhakti can dissolve it. Because bhakti is its antidote. Bhakti is, there's only one thing, pleasing Krishna. The other stuff, tendency, is, a covering of that light, that illumination. When the illumination becomes fully bright, darkness is gone. Zippo. Gone. So the tendency is gone when bhakti becomes illumined like that. And it's not my effort alone, it's Krishna's kindness and the connection with Krishna coming through and becoming vitalized and stronger, that Krishna is to be pleased and Krishna smiles and just takes away the darkness. Gone. That's what Devahuti says. He says, I'm covered by Maya, but it's your Maya, you can remove it. Can you remove it? He says, sure, I can remove it. And the means to remove it is through sadhusanga. Anyway, it's a nice section. You can read chapter 25 of Canto 3. This is I'm making in simple language this dialogue.
Thank you.
Including the dissolving of the mind, chapter 25, Canto 3. Dissolving of the covering, the subtle false ego mind stuff. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Srila Romapada Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
daughter